We have it on music, so let us do music. You may be seated. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Arthur Lynch. I'll be your chairman this morning. I am the chairman of the Disaster Preparedness, Hazard Mitigation, and Safety Committee for the parish of St. James. In our presence this morning, we have His Worship, your Mayor, Councillor Leroy Williams, ODJP. Also, we have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Richard Vernon, JP. We have in our midst the Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Mr. Richard Thompson. We have Ms. Sashoy Barrett, the Administrative Assistant for the Rosal Division. Also, we have our guest speaker, Mr. David Dobson. And, of course, we have other members that are here today. We have Mr. Randy Hay from the SCC, persons that always interact with the community. We have Mr. Randy Hay, Roland Hay, who is from the ODPM, in which he always attends the St. James Municipal Corporation Disaster Committee meeting. We also have Senior Deputy Superintendent McLaren of the Jamaica Fire Brigade and other representatives of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, and also other representatives of ODPM and SDC are here today. It is indeed an honor to be representing and presenting here today on behalf of the Disaster Committee of the St. James Municipal Corporation at our first staging of the Organization of American States Funding Community Emergency Response Training Initiative in St. James. The team, building the resilience of small enterprises in the Caribbean disaster. The fact is, we are vulnerable to a number of natural and man-made disasters. And as a leading tourism destination, Montego Bay should be positioned to respond to these disasters positively or proactively. Trainees of the Community Emergency Response Team, how are you feeling this morning? Members of the OAS and ODPM, how do you feel this morning? Good. Just good? Isn't it a great morning to be alive? Isn't it a great morning to be here in the midst of other persons wanting to secure the environment for all reasons, whether man-made or disaster, natural?
Always great to be alive.
Always great to be alive. But what about preparation? All right. We should be in a celebratory mood this morning. The efforts between the OAS, ODPM, and the St. James Municipal Corporation has bring forward Fruitation, a program that is designed to empower community and building a partnership. This training exercise is slated over a 6-day period, which will impact the lives of 20 participants, as the project is targeted to local communities with the participation of community members who own, manage, work in small tourism enterprise. The agency cannot do this alone. It is therefore imperative that we all make it our duty to educate our household, civic and business communities, and best practices in which we will face disaster and limit and mitigate eventualities. With the main mandate of CERT being offering the higher level of self-sustainability and the expansion of disaster preparedness and responsibilities and capabilities in communities, dependency on government agencies, which is subsequently maximize this. Because when we have trained personnel in the communities, we will have persons looking out for dangers, vulnerable sites, areas that will cause and lead to flooding and damage to communities and home and households. Similarly to through humanitarian focus, programs such as this, the St. James Municipal Corporation, as the local authority for the parish, reach out to engage hundreds of persons over the years, instilling the knowledge, confidence, and effectively mitigating disaster situations. As the St. James Municipal Corporation continues to engage among the members of the public in a meaningful way, we say to you that the ODPM and the OAS, we express sincere appreciation for your commitment in actualization of this collective mandate, retrieving and achieving resilience. At this time, I would like to invite the pastor of Emmanuel Deliverance Service, our center, Patrick Christie, to offer us a word of prayer and thanksgiving.
Good morning, everyone. As we start our program this morning, we just want to look to the Lord who will guide all the proceedings. On this, the anniversary of Gilbert, 14 years ago, the Lord was with us then, and he is with us now. Let's bow our heads. Lord, you have created this vast universe. And Lord, this is another time that we approach your mercy seat. Father, we can do nothing without you. Your word declares that upon this foundation, if it be destroyed, what will we do? And so, God, as we have come here, men and women in this cohort, with the responsibility of taking care of the land that you have blessed us with, we ask, oh God, that you will guide all the proceedings today. Lord, let this be a venture that as it starts, will continue. Let it not be only words, but also works that will go forth to mitigate whatever dangers lie ahead. We ask, eternal God, that you will bless each and every person in their capacity and their role. We thank you for the Councillor Arthur Lynch, the Chairman of Disaster Preparedness and Hazard Mitigation and the Safety Committee. Lord, we thank you for His Worship, the Mayor, who is part of this program as well. Mighty God, all these men and women, Mr. Richard Thompson, the Director General. And Lord, all the words that will come from Mr. Dobson today. Lord, we pray that as this program goes forward, we'll see your hand at work. We'll see your hand moving. Lord, that this, our parish, this, our community, this, our great nation, will never be the same. Mighty God, as we mitigate any dangers that are ahead, Lord, that our lives, our children, our businesses will continue to grow. We ask for your guiding hands. We ask for your guiding mercies. We ask for your unseen eyes that we sometimes cannot see in the face of danger. But God, as we put down our lives to be on the line, that you will continue to be there for us. Bless this proceeding today. We leave it into your hands. We thank you by saying amen.
Thank you, Pastor Christie. And also, we must acknowledge Mr. Patrick Watson, Senior Director of Hazard Mitigation Risk Management from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Sir. At this time, please join me in welcoming the first citizen of the parish, His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Leroy Williams, ODJP, who will welcome us officially to today's program. Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Chairman Arthur Lynch, JP, Mr. Richard Thompson, Acting Director General, Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. Ms. Tamoy Sinclair, JP, Parish Coordinator, Disaster Preparedness. Janelle van Glanin Rigel, well, I don't know, it's German, but I'm trying to do the English of this. Okay. Okay, so it's Country Representative, Organization of American States, OAS. Deputy Mayor, Richard Vernon, JP. Our guest speaker, David Dobson, Chief Technical Director, Ministry of Tourism. Pastor Patrick Christie of the Emmanuel Deliverance Center. Mr. Patrick Watson, Senior Director, Hazard Mitigation and Risk Management, Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Trainees, media personnel, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, which I'm sure should cover everyone who is here. So, ladies and gentlemen, special guests, good morning. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome you all today and to share this moment with you. In recent times, we have seen firsthand the damage that disastrous eventualities can wreak upon countries. Whether natural or man-made, a disaster can change lives in a totally unexpected manner. Indeed, we have suffered this reality through our own experiences with hurricanes, floods, fires, and even now with this pandemic which still persists. We have learned through all these experiences that we must be on the side of preparedness. We at the St. James Municipal Corporation have always cautioned our society against being reactive. We have staged through our disaster preparedness unit numerous projects and programs aimed at educating the public, both children and adults, in the best practices that should be prioritized in considering our response or preparedness for disasters. It is good, therefore, that we seek to use opportunities such as this one to continue to prepare ourselves to become more proactive and to expand our disaster preparedness and response capabilities. The training of the Community Emergency Response Teams, CERT, is expected to strengthen communities and lessen the impact of disasters by means of effective and efficient preparedness and response. It is the latest addition to our arsenal of strategies that will empower communities and local businesses, particularly small tourism enterprise, while offering a higher likelihood of self-sustainability. Through this CERT training program, we expect to see the development of public-private partnerships that will build resilience in businesses and communities. We want to create a concept that relaxes the reliances on government but enhances the capacity of the people. The training exercise will focus on areas such as first aid, fire safety, and swift water training. It is a reality aimed at helping us to position ourselves to produce in our communities teams of responders that can become more involved in mitigating the consequences of disasters. It is my wish that this training will allow trainees to see clear, realistic solutions to challenges so they can, at the appropriate time, find the right mechanisms for each dynamic situation. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change and global warming are realities. The world is ever changing. We must rise to meet current global challenges and the opportunities that are an appendage to development. In addition to this, let us continue to put in place those mechanisms that will propel our populace to be better community emergency responders. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and may God bless you all.
The OAS, as the large oldest regional organization dated back to 1889, says committed to making an invaluable impact on lives and livelihood. With that being said, we will have a presentation from JIS of our representatives of the country's Organization of America's OAS, Ms. Janelle Von Gluten Diggel. I ask you to turn your attention to the screen.
I'm pleased to welcome you this morning to the St. James Basic Community Emergency Response Team Training Course. The Organization of American States, through its Department of Sustainable Development, is pleased to have partnered with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management in the organization of this National Basic CERT training. The OAS remains committed to providing technical and financial assistance in building the resilience of the region's small tourism enterprises. This is done by contributing to the emerging resilience building ethic and strategy in the Caribbean through the OAS project, Building the Resilience of Small Tourism Enterprises in the Caribbean to Disasters, which is funded by the U.S. State Department. Part of this support, which represents the foundation block for building the resilience of the small tourism enterprises and communities, seeks to support the implementation of basic community emergency response teams, also known as CERT, through the training of communities, whether defined by geographic and administrative boundaries or by tourism services and subsectors, to expand the capacity of disaster preparedness and response in their businesses and communities. Community emergency response teams help communities to prepare and respond to disasters by providing them with an organizational structure, life-saving and preparedness skills, and knowledge to minimize human life, economic, and livelihood losses. CERTs also help communities to minimize damages to homes and losses of personal assets to help restore basic services and communications, and to be ready to go back to work in a more efficient and timely manner. Jamaica was one of 10 Caribbean countries that benefited from a regional basic community emergency response teams training in February 2021, which was co-hosted by the Organization of American States and the United States of America Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA. Participants engaged in practical exercises and discussions on topics such as disaster preparedness, disaster medical drills, disaster psychology, fire safety, utility controls, disaster medical operations, light search, and rescue and terrorism. Using the knowledge gained through the regional training while seeking to strengthen its own community-based response by enhancing its existing training programs and to promote its comprehensive disaster management policy strategy. The OTPAM submitted a proposal to the OAS to provide financial support to coordinate its own national basic CERT training in Barrowtown, William Street, Canterbury communities, St. James. This national basic CERT training will enable this wider community in St. James to benefit from enhanced functionality during an emergency. Additionally, the training will help volunteers develop basic disaster response skills, including team organization, light search and rescue, first aid, water and sanitation, strengthening preparedness mitigation and response capacity, as well as strengthening community resilience. It will also provide good practices that can be transferred to other local communities and businesses. We're all too familiar with a tough reality in the Caribbean of recurrent storms and other natural disasters, which often cause severe damage, interruption of operations, and even the closure of many small businesses. We believe that this integral approach that CERT offers will help communities and volunteers such as yourselves reduce damages and losses so you can better prepare and recover faster, thus minimizing business interruption and ensuring business continuity. The training comes at a critical time as the world struggles to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic amid another hurricane season for the Caribbean region. Developing critical skills and gaining the knowledge necessary to utilize community emergency response teams in communities such as the Barretttown, William Street, Canterbury communities in the St. James area are therefore important. As part of our commitment to our member states to provide institutional and capacity strengthening support, we at the General Secretariat of the OAS hope that this training will indeed enhance your understanding of community emergency response teams, as well as your responsibility to use the skills and knowledge gained to better prepare and protect your community against natural disasters. We look forward to continuing our collaborative efforts with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management in producing a cadre of basic CERT trainers to support and benefit communities across the island. We extend special thanks to Ms. Tamoy Sinclair, Disaster Coordinator for the Parish of St. James, and all other colleagues who have contributed their time and effort to make this training a reality. We look forward to future success stories from each of you on how you were able to utilize the skills and knowledge gained through this training to positively impact your community and country. We wish you a fruitful and productive training. Please be safe. Thank you.
As the country's foregoing disaster preparedness and relief organization, the ODPM has been making great strides in coordinating emergency preparedness and relief efforts. So without no further ado, help me invite Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Mr. Richard Thompson, to bring us his remarks. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Let me just kind of offset this a little bit so against the mayor and everybody else as best as possible. Yeah, just realized that I'm a little bit taller than Councillor Lynch. But His Worship, Mayor of Montego Bay, Leroy Williams, our local representative from OAS, country rep, is not here with us, but I acknowledge her nonetheless and say good morning to her. Mr. Dobson from the Ministry of Tourism, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On this 34-year anniversary of Hurricane Gilbert and also Hurricane Ivan that took place September 11th we at the ODPEM want to say good morning to everyone and say that we are happy to be here out in Montego Bay for this training workshop that is being sponsored by the OAS and supported by the ODPEM in support of the St. James Municipal Corporation. So when I was asked to drive down, Your Worship, I thought about it a little, and then I always remember that Kingston is not Jamaica. So it is always good to get out to other parts of the country and to be part of the work that is being done in disaster management. We all know very well that disasters have the potential to devastate communities, sectors within communities, and especially fragile sector in small island developing states, such as the tourism sector. And we have been doing a lot of work with the tourism sector to ensure that we're building resilience within that sector. So it can devastate those sectors, it can devastate wider countries that as we would have seen with Hurricane Gilbert in 1988. How many persons here remember Hurricane Gilbert? I don't think most persons at that table would have remembered Hurricane Gilbert. Some persons remember what they would have read about Hurricane Gilbert. But we would have seen for Hurricane Gilbert back in 1988 when I was a youngster in high school, just to date myself a little, that Gilbert would have caused devastating impact on Jamaica and really devastate many of our communities, and more so the tourism sector that was almost totally devastated by Hurricane Gilbert, the tourism and agriculture. And Gilbert in 1988 would have had a collective damage at about $4 billion, and we would have seen Hurricane Ivan as well that did not make total landfall on Jamaica, but would have had devastating impact as well on our communities and our sector. So we all realize how devastating disasters can be. When disasters occur, it is the collective responsibilities of, and the collective social responsibility as well, of everyone that is involved to ensure that we're having effective response. Because without effective response, disaster has the potential to have lifelong and devastating impact. And it can take millions of dollars using up the private and public sector purse to effect rehabilitation and reconstruction. And my team at the ODPEM can tell you that whenever time I speak on any Hurricane Gilbert's anniversary, I keep telling the team that in my estimation, given the damage that we would have seen in Hurricane Gilbert, that we would have not totally recovered from Gilbert as a country. So it becomes important that measures are put in place to build disaster resilience and to build resilience especially of our communities. Resilient communities are better able to absorb the shocks associated with disaster impacts and are able to recover quickly. And also your sectors similarly are able to absorb the shocks and recover quickly if resilient measures are put in place to ensure that sectors can recover and that communities can recover. One such measure in the suite of programs that is geared toward disaster resilient communities is building community emergency response team CERTs. So community emergency response teams, that program, it educates volunteers in disaster preparedness and sensitizes them in hazard that may occur within their communities. And it builds various skills, and you'd have heard some of them. We have the fire brigade here. You talk about fire safety, light level search and rescue, disaster medical operation, and I don't want to confuse it with a person believing that we're going to train persons to be surgeons. We're talking about basic first aid and other kind of emergency medical services. So CERT has the potential to really impact communities. Because as I always say to persons when we're talking about disaster response, and I always say to persons, Your Worship, that it is always good to be neighborly because the first person that will come to your aid in times of disasters is your neighbor. And similar with communities, it is essential that we are good stewards within our communities, where we ensure that we are putting the necessary work to impact our communities. And by virtue of that, we want to commend persons here today, those 20 persons that will be a part of this community-based training, to ensure that they are giving back to their communities and assisting their communities. So for us as small island developing states, it is essential that we are putting in disaster preparedness measures and disaster risk reduction measures to ensure that we are protecting our people, we are protecting our communities, and we are protecting our economies. We operate on pillars of very fragile economy, and this project is geared towards building resilience somewhat within the tourism sector by looking at small tourism enterprise. And so it becomes prudent that the activities of a country in terms of building resilience is geared towards protecting sectors, especially your vulnerable sector. And in times where climate change is real, it's not an hoax, as many persons would want to think, that climate change is real and we're having change in activities as it relates to the impact of climate hazards, that we are placing critical emphasis on the means and measures to build resilience in our sector, our economies, and by virtue our country. We see for the past decade where disaster impact globally would have, well, within the century, we would have seen about 1 million persons dying as a result of disasters, and billions of dollars in terms of its impact. Globally, we're talking about 2% of GDP, and similarly, locally, we're talking about 2.5 to 2.6% of GDP annual losses. So you can see the impact that disaster have on the growth and development of economies. And for poorer countries that are not so, have the great deal of resources like our neighbors to the north, our North American neighbors, it eats up within your resources whenever time you have to respond to events. So it makes disaster preparedness measures even more critical. We're looking at community-based training is an investment in disaster management to ensure that we are reducing that 2.5 to 2.6% of GDP and that we are impacting our economic growth and development, and so we can maintain sustainability. So let me thank the OAS for partnering with us in terms of this project and also the continued partnership and support of the municipal corporations across Jamaica, and more so within this project, the St. James Municipal Corporation, for the continued work that it is doing in terms of disaster risk management and the work that you have continued to do, Mayor, and your past Mayor, now one of our ministers, in the work of St. James to build resilience in St. James as a parish, one of the cornerstone of our tourism economy, to ensure that we are ultimately protecting our people and protecting our economy. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you very much for listening to me this morning, and I am hoping that this training will be fruitful and worthwhile as we continue to build resilience across our sector and our country. Thank you very much.
You have just heard from Mr. Richard Thompson. Well, Mr. Thompson, there are two things I'm going to address for you today, sir. You said that it's good to travel outside of Kingston into other parishes. Now, when it comes on to St. James, we are now declaring to you, sir, that we are the Republica of Montego Bay. This Republica of Montego Bay is the tourism mecca of Jamaica. Hence, you must, at all times, put on a happy face, gas up your vehicle, and come down to the Republica of Montego Bay. Very well. I now invite our own parish coordinator for disaster preparedness, Ms. Tomoy Sinclair, JP, to provide us with the program overview. Ms. Sinclair.
Pleasant good morning, everyone. All right. To include all of our distinguished guests, to me, you are all very distinguished. And I'm very happy to have you here with us this morning as we commemorate this very worthy program. I'll start with the overview. In May 2022, the St. James Municipal Corporation's Disaster Management Unit, through the assistance of the ODPEM, solicited the aid of the OAS through its project, Building the Resilience of Small Tourism Enterprises in the Caribbean to Disasters, to create and train 2 community emergency response teams within the areas of the parish heavily impacted by tourism, which includes several communities within the Rose Hall and the Greater Montego Bay area. Communities who will see direct benefits in the Rose Hall area includes Palmyra, Mount Zion, Rhine Park, Barrettown, and communities in the Greater Montego Bay area included North Gully, William Street, Albion, and Canterbury. The OAS, through its commitment to providing technical assistance in building the resilience of the region's small tourism enterprises, by providing technical and financial support for the training of the communities, whether defined geographically or administratively, has aided the St. James Municipal Corporation in its efforts to strengthen the capacity of communities to building disaster resilience. The OAS has been the chief financial support for this specific project, amounting to approximately $19,000 or a little bit over 3 million Jamaican dollars, while other financial support for this project has been garnered, of course, from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management and through own source from the disaster management budget at the St. James Municipal Corporation. The assistance from this budget to formally train and thereby create community emergency response teams, known as CERTs, in the Rose Hall and Greater Montego Bay area will lessen the impact of disasters by means of effective and efficient preparedness and response in these communities. These teams will also support the formal and professional disaster preparedness and response agencies so as to reduce personal injuries, personal property loss and damages, and by reducing the interruption of the business operations, enhancing the recovery capacity within our parish. These community emergency response teams were designed to empower and build partnerships and also to integrate these trained CERT teams from the community organization into formal disaster preparedness and response institutional arrangements, such as that as the parish disaster committee. This approach will overall reduce the community's full dependency on government, right, offering higher likelihood of self-sustainability and expand disaster preparedness and response capacities as these community emergency response team become supplementary to the formal emergency management system that we have in place here in St. James. This project targeted the assistance of local emergency management agencies such as St. John's Ambulance Services, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, the ODPEM, and of course the Disaster Management Unit at the Municipal Corporation to prepare and coordinate basic CERT training material, resources, and scenarios which will help in the development of these volunteers which were selected. The training itself will take place over a 6-day period beginning today, September 12 to September 17, 2022. It will benefit approximately 20 participants from both communities, Rose Hall area and the Greater Montego Bay area. Participants will benefit from training in basic disaster management, first aid training and basic CPR, fire safety warden, and of course swift water training, because Montego Bay is most vulnerable to flood impacts. So we definitely want these volunteers to be able to assist where necessary in immediate rescue operations where necessary. A final report at the end of this training will be submitted to the OAS, and it will ensure that we identify who are the community emergency response team managers. It will also identify what are the plans in place to hold simulation exercises within these communities. And also, this document will also highlight plans for developing a communication plan and a contingency plan so that drills can continue within these communities at least twice per year. So, CERTs, we're looking forward to a lot of work from you and community participation from you post this training as we strengthen your communities. The St. James Municipal Corporation looks forward to fostering continued partnership with the OAS and other like entities to strengthen disaster management capabilities within the parish of St. James. Indeed, the continuation of programs such as this highlights the fact that we are still very much committed to ensuring that as many persons and organizations as possible are exposed to vital information that means the difference between the effective management of disasters and total anarchy, which can result from a disorganized attempt to mitigate any eventuality. The engagement in this program is exemplary of the St. James Municipal Corporation's unwavering stance with regards to our efforts to building the capacity of our communities to mitigate and reduce disaster impacts. As the local authority of the parish, the Municipal Corporation will continue to engage members of the public in meaningful activities such as this one, and will continue to create programs to take on a modern approach to educating the populace that must be prepared for any eventuality. Thank you very much.
In the absence of Councillor Anthony Murray, JP, for the Rosal Division, he had asked his administrative assistant, Mrs. Sashoy Brown Barrett, to introduce the guest speaker today. Mrs. Barrett?
His Worship the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, media personnel, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and how are you today? The privilege has been granted to me today to introduce our speaker on behalf of Councillor Anthony Murray, who unfortunately could not be here today, but sends his apologies and kind regards. Our speaker today, from the little that I know, is a gentleman who has been with the Ministry of Tourism since August 2014, where he has been involved in leadership, technical coordination, and policy development. He is currently the Chief Technical Director for Policy Formulation and Technical Coordination Division. He is also a member of the Board of Directors of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, a member of Jamaica's Air Policy Committee, and also a member of the National Quality Council. He has also held a number of senior leadership positions in Jamaica's health system, where he served as Chief Executive Officer for a number of hospitals and has been parish manager for 2 parishes. He also has a passion for the development of small and medium tourism enterprises, to include community tourism, and has a firm belief in having them fully integrated in Jamaica's tourism offering. He also has a strong proponent of organization and is well known for his people skills. He's been past president for the Jamaica Medical Records Association, past president for the Jamaica Association of Health Service Executives, and also past president for Rotary Club of Spanish Town. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome our speaker for today, who is none other than Mr. David Wayne Dobson. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Mrs. Barrett. Permit me to acknowledge Chairman Mr. Lynch, Councillor Lynch, as well as His Worship, the Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Leroy Williams. I also gather that the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Richard Vernon, is in the house. I won't do like Mr. Lynch to attempt to introduce or acknowledge the representative from OAS in English, because I recognize that her name is a Dutch name, and of all the languages, Dutch wasn't one of them. I think Patois is much better and much easier. So, but we acknowledge her and we thank her for the message she shared with us. I acknowledge also Mr. Richard Thompson, somebody we have worked closely with over the years, and he spoke earlier. Mr. Moy Sinclair, who also gave an overview earlier and has been in touch with me over the time. The other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, including members of the security forces. Did I see right? Oh, the fire department. So the security force is not here. They are securing us from fire. Securing us. So I would have liked them to be here. One, not only because security issues are a major part of disasters, but also the impact from inadequate security, or let me say security or safety and security concerns, can be a disaster in and of itself. So it would have been nice if they were here with us this morning. But we welcome the members of the fire brigade, members of the media, and the trainees who will be beneficiaries of this program. Very good morning to all of you. This is, in fact, an event that my permanent secretary, Mrs. Jennifer Griffith, would have really loved to participate in personally, for very plausible reasons, of course, primarily because it's dealing with tourism, and in particular, small tourism enterprises, not to mention the specific focus, resilience. You can understand why it is that although previous commitments prevent her from being here, she wanted to make sure the ministry was properly represented and duly assigned yours truly. As a matter of fact, those of you who have been following our Minister of Tourism, Honorable Edmund Bartlett, of course, his journey in tourism, you would know that there is, in fact, one other major compelling reason why we regard this event as very important, and that it is the connection with the Organization of American States, OAS. Because late last year, he was elected chairman of the OAS Inter-American Committee on Tourism. We call it CITUR. And in addressing you today, I want to use that as a starting point. In accepting the honor bestowed upon Minister Bartlett, he urged the region to not accept what was, nor what is, but what must be in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic's challenge to heal and thrive. Now, as a result, the Americas would have a strong tourism sector, which provide more jobs and economic well-being for its citizens. He also urged the member states to work together for the recovery and future of tourism, emphasizing the need for innovation and investment in priority products and people. This ceremony is about the OAS building resilience of small tourism enterprises in the Caribbean to disasters, and follows close on a high-level policy forum on this initiative held right here in Montego Bay. Yes, Mr. Mayor, right here in Montego Bay, at the Holiday Inn Resort in July. Ironically, this was the first face-to-face gathering of the OAS member states since the pandemic compelled adherence to social distancing and mask wearing. The St. James Municipal Corporation and your parish disaster coordinator, Mr. Morris Sinclair, must therefore be commended for expeditiously taking up the baton and running with this OAS initiative. The fact that the OAS is paying so much attention to small tourism enterprises is not by chance. Not only does it recognize the importance of tourism to Caribbean states such as ours, but probably more importantly is the reality that 80 to 90% of stakeholders in the tourism industry fall within this group. Do you believe that? Yes, they do. So, despite the fact that large hotel chains dominate tourism public relations because they can afford professional PR services, it is in fact the small operators that are truly the backbone of the industry. This is truly a very timely initiative, coming as it does against the background of COVID-19, the most devastating pandemic to have impacted the industry in the last century. And even as the world gingerly crawls its way out of this pandemic to be faced with another potential one in monkeypox disease. We heard about it, eh? I heard they were trying to actually introduce one of the festival songs saying, we don't want a monkeypox around here. But it never seemed to have been finished on time. No, never got there. But by the way, we hope you all have noted that the polio virus was found in New York. In this day and age, the good thing is Jamaica has had robust vaccination against the polio virus. If you were anywhere near my age, you would probably have recalled getting that red thing in the little cup to drink at school. I know if you had it, some of you may have run out of the room and spat it outside when you got out. I saw some did that. So I said that to say that despite we feel comfortable that we have had this robust vaccination program, the truth is some of who think they are vaccinated may very well not be. That was a digression anyhow. So furthermore, every year we get the jitters around this time, given the history of hurricanes, their frequency and intensity, as well as other natural disasters such as earthquakes and their heavy toll on our islands. Even as we are gathered here today, we have to be mindful that Earl, the Atlantic season's second storm to develop into a hurricane so far this year, is making its presence felt. Although forecasters say Earl is no threat to our region at this time, we only have to look at the worldwide impact of a war way over in the Ukraine on energy and foodstuff to realize that we are truly a global village and that we are subjected to the negative impacts of issues that we might consider to be none of our business. Believe you me, they are. So don't continue to say they are none of our business. We must only expand our thinking to climate change, a worldwide threat that has been on the agenda of many other international conferences, and which even as non-scientists, we can justifiably say that we are feeling the effects of this phenomenon. Given the integral role that the OAS has to play in this event, I know you will forgive me for borrowing a few words from the Executive Secretary for Integral Development, General Secretariat of the OAS, Kim Osborne, who reminded us at the High-Level Policy Forum, and I quote, "With climate change posing an ever-urgent threat to the lives and livelihoods of the people of the region, the focus on building economic, environmental, social, and citizenry resilience cannot be overstated. When seen through the lens of our fragile tourism industry, where the impact of disasters can be crippling, the need for coordinated, concerted action between national, regional, and international agencies and policymakers is essential." End of quote. Similarly, I am personally aware that our own Minister, Honorable Edmund Bartlett, has been an evangelist for tourism destinations worldwide to adopt policies and programs that will make the industry resilient. However, this evangelist has been doing much more talk, or much more than talk. Let me clarify that carefully. He has co-founded the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center, GTRCMC, on the campus of the University of the West Indies, Mona, and with world leaders in tourism hailing this innovation, some 6 satellite centers of the GTRCMC have already been launched, with 4 more to be established by the end of this year. Additionally, for the benefit of our own tourism sector, the Ministry of Tourism has produced disaster risk management tools for local tourism stakeholders. These include disaster risk management plan templates and guidelines. And I just pause to explain that these templates allow every local entity or community tourism enterprise to take this template and develop their own disaster risk management plans. All right? So if it's something you can contact us and we can share. And we also did a business continuity plan template and a guidebook as part of an initiative by the ministry and its public bodies to develop and implement comprehensive strategies to build resilience in the sector. The primary objective of the Disasters Management Plan is to provide clear guidance to the management and staff of tourism entities on the basic infrastructure and operating procedures required to mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from hazards, events, or emergency situations. While the BCP guidebook provides guidelines to tourism entities on creating the BCP and BCP business continuity plan to enhance risk reduction and recovery strategies. And so we are simply saying disaster may hit you. You may not be able to avoid it, but if and when it does, we must be able to come out of it. Hence the reason for business continuity planning. When these tools were handed out to stakeholders in June of this year, Minister Bartlett encouraged them to take the DRM tools to the next level of innovation and convert the information into applicable and physically useful action, recognizing that in doing so, they would only be boosting resilience and be able to respond quickly and well to recover fast and grow after disaster strikes. Interestingly, the OAS mantra is more rights for more people. And this is being manifested in its initiative through its financial and technical support for the training of communities, whether defined by geographic or administrative boundaries, or by tourism services and the subsectors, on the basis of a community emergency response team, and creating community response teams in their businesses and communities. This should be of particular interest to persons with an interest in community tourism, a subsector which has full support of the Ministry of Tourism as it provides a platform for small tourism enterprises to have a voice in decision-making fora. This is supported financially and technically by Tourism Project Development Company, TPDCO. So I hope you have been in touch with the TPDCO, an integral public body of the Ministry of Tourism, which has been undertaking a number of projects to drive foot traffic to communities with the potential to develop community tourism. I suppose Mr. Mayor, your worship, that we may have to start letting you know each time we come into your neck of the woods. Because most time we come, persons don't know and have no clue of what we're doing. Would you believe that we have been having engagements with community tourism enterprises in St. James? Yes, we have been going to a number of places. And let me just pause a minute to explain that our effort for community tourism is to form what we call clusters. And clusters is where a number of community tourism enterprises come together to support each other. What do we mean by that? You may have a little, or a number of you may have a room on your house that you can, take in somebody, or you have a little house listed on Airbnb. After a while, the people start to come and stay with you. Guess what? They're going to want food, right? So the farmers and everybody will start providing the stuff for the food. And then they start to come very often. You have to change the sheet every day. So the little lady with a little sewing machine can start sewing sheets and pillowcases and you know what, right? And when they come, they get bored and they want something to do. So you start to say, but we have a cave up in that mountain and we can provide some tours. Yes? You have birds and they might want to go bird watching. You might have a river down there, and all of this come together as one cluster. So you can ask the people over in Seven Rivers. You can ask the people up in Catadupa. And you can ask the people up in Seaford Town, what many of us call Germantown. We have been there on the ground, and we have been working with them for the development of those clusters so that more visitors can participate in community tourism in the parish of St. James. Isn't that so? I actually wrote it on my script that you're supposed to clap right here, Now, that's not quite the case, but it deserves a clap, all right? So I am aware that the St. James Municipal Corporation has, for the past 4 or 5 years, been driving its local economic development program, you call LED, led by Dr. Drone Dove. And that is, of course, it has helped hundreds of individuals to get on their feet and progress on the road to economic independence. I presume that some of the beneficiaries are into projects that allow them to earn from tourism. And this is a very good thing because we recognize that total acceptance of tourism as the economic backbone of Jamaica will come when there is a wide-scale appreciation of the fact that the industry is in fact benefiting the masses of the people. And this is something you will hear ministers speak about over and over, and it is part and parcel of the ministry's policy direction that while we are pushing and we are bringing more tourists to Jamaica, it's not a matter of them just coming in and they are locked into one space and they don't experience Jamaica. We want them to come where you are. We want them to come and do what you do and eat what you eat and talk like how you talk. I know them love patois. And they want to talk the patois and they want to come and learn Jamaican dances and they want to do all kinds of things. So we are interested to have this happening. So we want to commend the Municipal Corporation for the effort being put into the LED and to wish that it will grow from strength to strength, benefiting more people and more communities as it grows. In closing, I want to underscore to the 20 participants who are here today that your community emergency response team training is designed to lessen the impact of disasters by means of effective and efficient preparedness and response. and by supporting formal and professional disaster preparedness and response agencies. This, in turn, reduced personal injuries, personal property losses and damage, and by reducing the interruption of business operation, enhance your recovery capacity. This, of course, resonates with the message we have been preaching within the tourism sector. And it is my hope that the participants will take it seriously. Do I need to repeat that? Take it seriously. And be prepared, knowing that disasters can, and they do strike, when they're least expected. So I really commend again the initiative, and I commend those of you who have committed yourselves to being a part of this program. It's for 5 days, I understand, and I want to wish you all the best for these 5 days. Learn as much as you can, and I certainly will be in touch to find out how well it is going. All the best. Have a great program. God bless you.
You have heard from Mr. David Dobson, the Chief Technical Director in the Ministry of Tourism. While we cannot stop natural disaster, we must arm ourselves with the knowledge so that not many lives will be lost whenever we have a natural disaster. I guess we can all agree that in bringing the current down on today's proceedings, we are more appreciative of the efforts that are being put into a proactive measure in addressing disasters and eventualities. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Your presence was truly appreciative. At this time, I'm going to allow Mr. Patrick Watson, Senior Director of Hazard Mitigation and Risk Management at the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, to give the official voter thanks. Mr. Watson.
Warm and graceful morning to you all. His Worship Mayor Leroy Williams, Deputy Mayor, on your way out, Richard Vernon, other distinguished guests at the head table, good morning to you all. It is my privilege to move the vote of thanks, to acknowledge the hard work of all those who have made this event possible. I must also acknowledge the presentation made by His Worship the Mayor. Your presentation clearly speaks volume to the level of leadership at your MC, sir, I must say. Your disaster coordinator speaks highly of the work at the St. James Municipal Corporation. You certainly remind us about climate change, that it is real. You promote public-private partnership. You spoke about the importance of building resilience at the local level. Those words mean a lot to us, sir, and we thank you for them. Chairman Arthur Lynch, Councillor and Chairman for the Disaster Preparedness, Hazard Mitigation and Safety Committee, I can simply say your energy was real. The energy was real. You clearly demonstrate that under your leadership as chairman of this committee, we expect a lot of things to happen. And this project is one of those that actually took place. Pastor Patrick Christie, we were encouraged by your words. They certainly reached us in the right way. And I will try to pronounce this word. Janelle Van Glennan Wegel, country representative of OAS. Clearly, your commitment speaks volume of building resilience at the local level, your commitment to partnership, the list of projects that you have outlined surely give us the clear indication that the OAS is in the right direction, the heart is at the right place. Acting Deputy Director General, Mr. Richard Thompson. It is not by mistake but intentional that you make the link between the training that is being done here and its importance to the economy. Oftentimes we think that we are just in a space here doing a training, but we're actually building capacity so it can reduce the impact of disaster. And the Deputy General surely made that link in his presentation. The hardworking Tamai Sinclair, where you are. Clearly in your presentation, Tamai, you made a strategic move. You demonstrate a strategic intention of the St. James Municipal Council and the disaster management arm of the council. This is an investment, and you clearly made that clear, that this is an investment. It is an investment in you, but it's also an investment in disaster management in the parish. This will certainly go a far way in mitigating disasters within the parish, and we're happy for that presentation. It will certainly go a far way in terms of planning, the implementation of projects, and you mentioned the fire drills. Right? So certainly this is not just a session to leave alone. The St. James MC is expecting that after this session, you'll be called upon to take part in different activities in your community. And your parish disaster coordinator has made that clear in her presentation. CTD of the Tourism Ministry, Mr. David Dobson. You surely remind us that regardless of what took place, no matter the distance it is from Jamaica, it has some impact to the country. You made mention of the war, and certainly just by looking at what took place, the distance, you thought it would not have any direct impact on Jamaica. But you also reminded us of the fragile economy and the fragile product, which is the tourism product. You also spoke about the plans taking place within your ministry. The DRM plan, the business continuity plan, and these are tools that you not only keep, you share them. That means you're actually reaching out and you're building resilience. And this is really commendable work from the Ministry of Tourism. I also want to recognize the work of the media. Thanks for being here. Thanks for covering the event. I must also recognize the participants. Thanks for taking the decision to be a part of this movement. We really appreciate it. And we are investing in you. This is an investment. We expect for you to take the message after the training has been completed. Other distinguished guests, other members, what's the name of the hotel? Darren House? Name of this hotel. Name of the hotel. Verney House staff. Thank you very much. It's really a tremendous service, and we really appreciate the effort. In closing, I must make a presentation to the guest speaker, but I'll ask someone to make the handover. Somebody's far more beautiful than me. Far more beautiful than me. That is easy to find. Someone that is far more beautiful than me. And someone that's just looking like this. Come on. She was coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Dobson, please come to the podium.
Good afternoon, gentle people. Sir, on behalf of the participants of this training, we want to say a big thank you for your encouraging words, and we will sure do grasp all that we are being taught and bring it back to our communities.
Chairman, it's over to you for you to close. Any closing words, sir?
As the OAS and the disaster, or the ODEPAM, and the disaster committee of the St. James Municipal Corporation. To the participants, I say to you that this is a great opportunity. And with opportunity come with great openings for other entities and opportunities. Hence, we say to you that take heed, learn, and whatever you learned, please share with a member of your family, member of the community, member of the business sector. With that, I must say thank you all for coming and being a participant. Members, other members that are here, the media, thank you for being here today.